Welcome to Retraction. I'm Antoine.
I'm Jamie, and we're reversing course through discourse.
It is episode 98 on the road to 100. Once we get past 100, Jamie, what will I do? What will I say?
I don't know. It's gonna be like the year 2000. What's gonna happen?
Y2K. I remember it fondly. The world didn't shut down, and everyone still had to go back to school.
Yeah,
that's disappointing.
Yeah. Did the kids even learn about that? Was it such a flop that we just like collectively forget about it?
The only time I ever see it is if I'm watching some sort of documentary on the 90s. That they, it usually ends with a part where people are talking about, they do a couple of interviews with a couple of, 90s kids being like, Y2K, man, world's going to end. All the computer clocks are going to go 000, and the financial system's going to crash right before our eyes. And strikes midnight and nothing happens. And
now, is that because we fixed it, or did it just I
think there was a couple of just errors for some bank code, maybe that was fixed exactly, and it wouldn't have even been a problem. I think it would have. I think it would have been negligible. I don't. It's one of those urban myths that got out of hand because we didn't have the the internet wasn't the way it is today, where you could fact check and escape fake news. So everyone just bought into what was going on at the time, which the media was just circulating.
Yeah, because with the internet now, we never buy into.
No, we don't.
Conspiracy
we're
theories
very
or
smart.
anything. Everyone always facts check now.
Always. This is none of that stuff ever happens. So we live in a better world today.
We've learned so much from those pathetic 2000s.
Yeah, it's a bygone era for a bygone time. Uncivilized.
All right. Yeah. Before we get started. Watchers, listeners, don't forget, subscribe, like, share, and comment on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at Retraction Media, and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, and more.
Cool. So, JB, last time we spoke, and this is off air, I told you that I was boycotting the World Cup because you were saying I'm watching the World Cup because you like the World Cup.
And funny enough, I only watched one match, and not because you said anything to me, but because I just haven't had the time. But go figure.
Oh well, however a boycott works.
Have you watched more than me now?
No, not at all. I refuse. Okay. I'm holding fast to it because I can't do it in good conscience. So part of the catalyst that threw me into I'm boycotting the World Cup. I've had enough. I am an avid soccer fan. I've been an avid soccer fan probably since I was like 8 years old or so. Jamie actually played soccer. I didn't. I was just more about watching it. I think in '98, I think Jamaica was in the World Cup, so that was also really helpful. Having like that immigrant national pride that Americans so often, ascribe to. Despite
that's what the cup's about.
Well, that's what the cup was about.
Or was.
That's how I feel. And it wasn't really
for the fans.
Like
so you have to compartmentalize what it means for the people and what it means for the overlords.
Do we? Well, here's the thing. This is what
before attaching motive to it, yeah, because it is about that for a lot of people still, regardless of what the people pulling strings do.
Whatever FIFA is doing. Fair enough. Well, here's the thing. I can't get past it anymore. And like I was saying, so John Oliver, he did his Qatar special, World Cup special, and at the end of it, even though he really, he brought the hammer, he brought the smackdown on how corrupt FIFA is and how corrupt this World Cup in particular has been, he still was like, I'm gonna watch it. And I was sort of
but it's interesting because there are other things that you have brought up before that you were like, it's not on the people to do it. It's not a bottoms up approach. It's a top down. We need to force the organizations that have this kind of power to act in certain ways. But you are very reluctant to put it on the people.
Yeah. And when it comes
to this, it's different.
Yes, because a direct, by not watching, that is removing ad dollars and removing revenue from the the networks that are going to cover it. And if there's no money in covering the World Cup, that will mean there's probably not going to be much money in the World Cup going forward. Now, this is something that a lot of people like, right? And so what I'm about to say is I don't want you to shoot it down by saying it's not a necessity, because recreational activity is something, entertainment
I mean, I think it needs to be balanced, but it is something that's very important to humanity. It's part of who we are.
Yeah.
And so if you were to say, okay, we should force electric vehicles, everyone boycott gas guzzling cars. They can't.
I think it's a little different because here's why I'm going to say this is different. This is an event. First of all, yeah, if you only drove every 4 years, maybe there is more of an argument to maybe we should just not drive this fourth year. Maybe yeah, you're right. If it
the event takes place every 4 years, but there's a build up and there are people playing. It goes on longer.
Well, yeah, sure. There's qualifiers and everything like that, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about the players because. So here's the thing: do I fault players for playing? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because I mean, there's contracts. This is their livelihood. I'm not expecting them. Yes, I mean they make more than most people could dream of in a single lifetime. But at the same time, it's all scalable. And I'm not saying that a player should remove themselves from the World Cup in order to make a statement. First of all,
in effect, you're doing that, though. If you were to tell people, listen, players, I'm not trying to take away your livelihood. I wouldn't expect you to volunteer your livelihood, but I'm going to take it from you through boycott.
Well, it's different. Well, I think it's very different. First of all, I'm talking about something that's preemptive. I'm saying for the player, there could be fines. There could be a whole host of backlash that comes from freaking Qatar is the sponsor of, I believe, what is it, Paris Saint-Germain, the PSG. To not play in Qatar World Cup as a player that plays on that team, that could definitely jeopardize what may happen to you in terms of the future of your soccer career. So that those consequences is sort of what I'm alluding to here. As a fan, it's very different. By me simply saying, all right, I'm not going to watch this, and then if the networks are saying, all right, no one's watching it, maybe it could get back to FIFA in some way to say maybe pick better, more countries that are, I guess, more what's the word I'm looking for? What is it? Affable to human rights, countries that give a little bit more to the human experience.
I am not arguing against
by not watching.
We've posted about it on Twitter several times, and we've probably touched on it briefly in maybe some other episodes. I'm not for or arguing against what you're saying in terms of the human rights violations and the workers, what they've been going through and all of that.
Well, okay.
But what I'm trying to understand, and, to be fair to you, you were like, yeah, this is just something that I'm doing. I don't expect
that's true. Yes. I was not promoting it that others should follow.
The idea that there would be a global boycott, I mean, it just seems unrealistic.
Unrealistic.
I can't think of anything that would actually force that or would garner that. Even, I mean, there have been some pretty bad things in the past, and those countries have still been able to have Olympics and World Cups in their countries.
This is true. I mean, look, is a global blackout ever going to be possible? No, but if, I don't know, maybe the nations with the biggest buying power in terms of these revenue dollars decided to opt out. Maybe nations in the global north, England, America, France, some of the big players were like, you know what? We're not gonna televise this. We're not gonna.
You think that's possible? You think that is possible?
I think that there's definitely could be a year where FIFA continues with these shenanigans and England doesn't make it to the World Cup, and I think that might be a good year to start promoting it. See how those dollars start to drop
Everyone should boycott as soon as their team loses.
I'm just putting it out there. There are ways to do it. I'm not saying that everyone needs to be a saint. I'm just saying there are ways to do it. Now, that thing is, I wanted to get into.
Is there so? Two things really. One, there's a FIFA documentary on Netflix too that I started watching today, and that was interesting, and it kind of supports what John Oliver was saying and everything.
Yeah.
But it goes deeper into the corruption of FIFA, so it's kind of cool. In light of the unlikelihood that any kind of global north or global at all boycott would happen, and therefore force FIFA to reevaluate how it does stuff. What is the solution? Like, how? If you were like, all right, I'm not going to boycott because it's futile, like how do you do it? Other than kind of like what you said with other stuff, you have governments and agencies come down on FIFA, which according to the Netflix series that I'm watching, did happen. Like a bunch of people from FIFA did get arrested on corruption charges. And so
when was that? What year was that? Or
like 2019 or something like that.
Okay.
It was fairly recent, and it was all about this World Cup, like leading up to this World Cup. So that's part of it. And I didn't get to finish it, so maybe I should have kind of powered through for this episode, but I guess it kind of just, it reminds me of what you kind of say is the onus shouldn't be on the people.
Yeah.
It should be on the agencies that do the people's work. And it shouldn't be on us to force things from a bottoms up, especially at this scale. Yeah. I mean, it's not likely.
Well, I mean, here, I will say this as well. Okay. First of all, it's fantastic. If the government bodies are actually trying to do something about FIFA's corruption, that's fantastic. But the thing is, I think this World Cup in particular, this is why it got me, goes beyond that. I think that this is so egregious, what's gone on with this World Cup in particular, because here's the thing. Can you basically move away? Like, I don't want to say that, you know, that people could turn a blind eye to human rights violations in general, but when it comes to the rights of women in Qatar, okay, which is absurd because they basically can't do anything without a male guardian. Sex outside of marriage, that is illegal. So, like, as John brought up, in order to get services for like prenatal care, a guardian basically has to sign off to say that you were not having sex outside of marriage. And then the 7 years imprisonment to homo if you're gay is one thing as well. And the thing, I guess what I'm trying to say is, a lot of the marketing usually comes down to, well, if you open these countries up to the outside world, you have people from all over the different places come in, and they're mixing, then people can get, I don't know, emboldened to overturn some of these draconian laws. That's usually how the marketing goes. It's saying, open these countries up. If you basically deny these countries, if you exclude these countries and leave them into the dark ages, they will continue to act medieval. But if the world isn't, if they're forced to embrace the world, change can happen from within. I no longer believe that. I think that's just a world of like bunk. I think it's blatantly clear that all these countries are interested in is the immediate influx of cash from all these foreigners coming into the country to watch the World Cup. And then once they are gone, they will go back onto their merry way and continue their oppressive, their oppressive regimes, their draconian laws, and what have you. I do not believe that an influx of people for one event has any real meaningful, lasting change on these countries. So that's one aspect. Okay,
not at all.
But I mean, I'm just saying it's not. That wasn't.
I know that there's been that narrative, but it would be more believable for something like that to gain traction if there was more prolonged exposure.
Yeah, well, exactly.
And not this, like you said, this one-time event that's easy.
It's a flash in the pan. It's a flash in the pan. Yeah.
And so, yeah. But my point is, all right, go ahead if you want to go.
Well, I'm just saying that is something that you could at least use as a bedtime story to watch the World Cup. you could pretend to say, all right, if we support this, then maybe there'll be a little modicum of change. Somebody will get inspired and start a revolution because they got to talk to some gay people from Ireland, and they were just like, I can't believe how free you are. You opened up my world. I'm gonna go and do something impactful.
Yeah, I can't believe you're like me. You put your pants on one leg.
I don't know. In the narrative, I'm saying you can.
No, but my thing is like
story. You could.
But my thing is, all right, this happened and it shouldn't have happened. This country should not have gotten the cup.
Yeah,
but they did.
Correct.
And my thing is, why did that happen? Knowing that there was all these reasons that were submitted as to why they shouldn't. The temperature's too hot, the conditions weren't right for anyone, all this stuff, and clearly there was corruption. So then you prosecute. You take those decision makers at FIFA and any other associating agency to task for that.
Well, I don't know how you prosecute that. I don't know how you prosecute that, because as much as
they did it. They are doing it. I mean, I want to finish this documentary, but
are they doing it for the bribery that might be involved, or they're actually doing it because they're holding them accountable for the actions of the Qatar government with regard to the kafala system? But
I think that the bribery had to happen because of those things, they were disqualified. That's a disqualifier.
Right. We're not being able to.
So no, you're not going to change Qatar. You are not going to be able to, even if you boycotted this, Qatar's not going to change. It's not going to be like, oh, wow.
No, not at all. No, my whole thing is hurting FIFA. I'm trying to say
so you FIFA? Prosecute those people is what I would. Mm-hmm. But I'm not even saying that boycotting is not the right thing. I just don't know if it's the thing that would change, because Did people boycott any of the other major sporting events, including the World Cup,
but you haven't
held at places like that?
But the thing is, I'm saying I haven't even gotten to what put me over the edge. I'm saying that you could do that plausible deniability, and I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying it's possible when you're putting yourself to bed with those bedtime stories of the marketing of like, you know, changing the Qatar from within. It's the fact that 6,500 people perished as a result of building these things.
And they thought it was going to be 5,000. So it's actually over the estimates, but they knew that going in.
Exactly. If you knew that this many people would die for these people to be able to build stadiums in time for this World Cup, they're building infrastructure. They built the whole city for a population that cannot support it. If you knew that is what is, first of all, it's one thing to know that that's what's going to happen going into it. Most people didn't, because most people have not been paying attention to what Qatar is as a country, how they would fund these things. I mean, these are all things that have come out in recent years. Plus, we had a global pandemic for the last 2 years. Okay. I'm not blaming people for not knowing that much about what went down into Qatar, or not knowing beforehand when Qatar was given the World Cup. Most people didn't even know that they would have to switch it to the winter because it's like 130 degrees in like the summers, which is when they built the stadiums. So the workers were working in conditions that the players who are running, what is the average miles in a soccer match? What is it, like 6 miles or something like that? Is your average? It's something like that. Players can't run 6 miles for 90 minutes on a pitch, but people can work from morning to night. Yeah, that's like 24 hours in 130 degree heat, and that's fine. That's okay. So the fact that went on is that's egregious. But then on top of it, the fact that people kept dying and they were not reporting them, I don't know where. I guess that's where I hit my limit. I was like, I don't know how I can watch this.
It's almost so. Okay, again, I'm not going to argue against the boycott, but what I'm saying is that aside, whether people choose to do it or not, isn't good enough for accountability. Like, if you truly want accountability, my question is, what does that look like? Because a boycott isn't it. Like, a boycott is very fluid. It is up to the people to do that, and it hurts revenue, but so what? They're just on to the next thing.
I don't think you could say a so what. Revenue, you hitting pockets is how you get change. That's the
and they'll figure out how to make up for it the next time around.
Maybe not. It depends on how aggressive the boycott
it shouldn't be maybe not. That's the thing. When you murder someone, it isn't maybe we'll get him next time. Maybe not. It isn't maybe not. How do you hold people accountable? Because that's what we should be focusing on.
It's a global organization.
But it's not good enough.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm not saying this is the end all to be all. I'm just saying, as a person, what I could do in my time, what I could do with my time, was not give it to FIFA, and that was the decision I made. But at the same time, you're right. I didn't call for others to join me. I didn't go on a tirade and say how terrible a human race are we that you could know that nearly 7,000 people died building this event for you. And still just go to it, rooting on your favorite team, hoping that they will win the World Cup. It was too much for me, but I get it. Like you said, people need these things. We're on the back of a global pandemic. Mental health is at an all-time low in terms of its healthiness. I get it. People wanted this. Plus, it is rough. It's hard for me. You're right. I'm reading the box scores from my paper.
Sounds like you're cheating.
Yeah, well, I mean, I am looking at what's happening, because the thing is, I know that looking at it in the paper,
I'm not going to read it.
Well, I'm just saying it doesn't.
I just don't want to see it in motion. I
don't want to give money to FIFA. That's where it is. I know that if I read it in the New York Times, FIFA's not getting that money, so I don't. So it's not that big a deal. I want to root for the U.S. I'm glad that they're tying England. They're doing, this is fantastic. They're doing great. And if they win the World Cup, it's gonna be so sad that I cannot. I mean, it's not possible, but it's gonna be sad that if the
U.S. gets to the finals,
I will not watch that match.
If the U.S. went to the finals, you wouldn't.
I will not watch that. No, everyone else with their mother will be out, and I will walk my dog or something. I will be the lone person in the street that refuses. No, I'm hard and fast on my boycott of the World Cup.
Listen, it's admirable. For whatever reason, I just haven't gotten to watch anything. I watched probably about 20 minutes of the first U.S. match against Wales, or the last 20, whatever it was. But yeah, I just haven't gotten to do it. Yeah.
Well, it's working out in your favor. The souls.
It's not for any righteous reason though.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm sure that
it's hard for me. It's hard. Like I understand the disdain that you can have, especially the more that you know about it, where it just becomes not fun anymore. You cannot find the joy in it, knowing what it's come to. Not everyone is going to have that degree of exposure to the horror in order for them to feel that way. And a lot of people, like, don't want to feel that way. They want to enjoy this once every 4-year event. And it's easy to get wrapped up in, well, why don't you care? Why don't you learn more? Why aren't you more upset? But I keep coming back to, and again, it's funny because you're the one that usually makes this point. How much do we want to put on the individuals in this situation?
It's not about that's the other thing that I don't want to. This is part of why I didn't go on a tirade to say everyone needs to boycott it, because fundamentally, like you said, I'm always in the defense where I'm like, it's not on the people, it's on the powers that be to hold wrongdoers, whatever is a better word for that, accountable. It's difficult because FIFA is a global entity, and so it's like what government's going to take charge to hold them accountable. So I'm actually now I want to watch this documentary because I want to know which government is actually saying, hey, you've done wrong and we're going to prosecute you. And even if they do prosecute them, I don't know if it necessarily will stick, because again, it is very difficult to prosecute a global entity. It's part of the reason why the United Nations doesn't have massive funds that go into their army, because this is the big fear that the world had, is that, once an army is given to this non-governing body, I don't even know why I'm going down that route, because America basically has stepped in as that governing body. But I'm just saying it's very amorphous. So it's hard. But I guess what I wanted to go back to is that while I do not feel it is on the people necessarily to make this ultimate change, I just think it is hard for me to philosophically reconcile that amount of despair, that amount of death, that amount of carnage. Carnage may be a harsh word. I mean, it's not harsh, but carnage may not be the appropriate word. But I'm just saying it is very difficult for me to reconcile watching something, and it's like watching people play a game, a freaking game where you kick a ball around a grass pitch into a net that 6,500 people had to die in order to do. That's what I'm saying. That's the part that really gets me as a person, as an individual. So that's the thing that I just cannot seem to get myself around it. I just cannot reconcile it to enjoy the game in any way, shape, or form. But I was impressed that Oliver at the end of his segment was like, I'm going to root for England. I was like, you know what? That's amazing. That's my point. It's amazing you could get there, but I personally cannot. And that's sort of where I was going to get at. I did want to read one more thing, because I know you might be looking up something, but I thought, while I will not dare play anything from HBO, because I do not want to get copyright strike in any way, shape, or form, there was a guy, his name is it's Immortal Defiant. I love these internet names. He had a comment that was that's probably buried at this point, but it had a lot of upvotes. He wrote, to add some context to the environment those stadium workers had to deal with, I was deployed there as a Navy corpsman in a USMC unit back in 2014. The Navy/Marines use a system called the WBGT, which stands for Wet Bulb Globe Test Index. When it is over 90 degrees, all non-essential activity is prohibited as a severe risk of heat stroke, dehydration, etc. This is known as Black Flag. Over the summer, we arrived in August. It was Black Flag before the sun even rose. It was often into the low 130s. This is degrees for our anyone listening abroad. The heat is exacerbated by the extreme humidity. It was often over 90% humidity when we were there. So your sweat doesn't evaporate, which means your body can't cool off naturally, and you have an increased risk of heat injuries. When that man said it felt like, he's referring to a man that was interviewed in the segment. When that man said it felt like it was raining, that's not an exaggeration. As soon as you left an air-conditioned space, your clothes soaked through with sweat in 5 to 10 minutes. It felt like what I imagined being in an oven would be like.
That's horrific.
I'm just saying, like, that's the thing. That's how terrible these people were forced. It was forced labor at the end of the day. They couldn't go home. They weren't allowed to leave. That's the kind of environment they had to build stadiums in. I can't even imagine what it's like to go outside and have to work in 100-degree weather, much less 130. That's insane. That's my point. It's like when you read things like that, I just can't do it.
It's hard to find joy now. And I'll be honest, after I watched a John Oliver segment, which was after I watched that first match, and then now watching the Netflix special, the wind has kind of been taken out of my sails a little bit, and my desire to catch those matches has gone down significantly, and to the point where, maybe subconsciously I'm not even trying anymore. I haven't made any real effort to do it, but there's no counter to it other than, in addition to that, what else should happen. And I did actually look up, because it was bothering me. I haven't watched enough of the documentary, who would take FIFA to task. It is a Swiss-based organization, so Switzerland.
Okay.
And that is who brought federal criminal charges against FIFA and its executives. Unfortunately, I want to be fair to due process, so maybe it's the right move, but I doubt it. They were acquitted in July of this year of all charges. So yeah, but Switzerland is the country that would prosecute them. Okay. So it doesn't matter if they're a global org.
Yeah,
they're headquartered in Zurich.
I mean, there's a lot of things I could joke about to say, oh, of course.
Of course, right?
That's it.
Yeah, the low-hanging fruit. Yeah,
is the it's almost like it's the fox watching the hen house. I'll leave it at that. I'll say that. I'll say it is the saying we have here in the States, folks, is well, if you put the fox in charge of the hen house, don't be surprised if a couple of chickens go missing. So that sounds about right. They were acquitted. There was a show based on the global outrage from both players and managers and definitely people. So they did a show to say, hey, we're going to try to investigate this. And then funny enough, it all fell apart as you got closer to the World Cup. Because I think that was one of the prescient things that John Oliver said as well, is that once the whistle blows, who's talking about this? I mean, it's all, even when I read the papers, even when I read them, all they're talking about is the games. They're not talking about the atrocities anymore. They're not talking about
you should boycott the papers.
Boycott the papers. I don't know if they would know why I'm boycotting them, because it doesn't have that one-to-one like by not watching the games. But yeah, I could. But you're right. I'm just saying that the world over, you forget. Everyone forgives and forgets, and then FIFA's going to do it again. And it sucks. Look, I'm upset. I love the World Cup. I used to be one of those people, and this is me as a very young, I was a child. I believed that the World Cup was why we wouldn't have wars, because you could play it out. Every country in the world can get an opportunity to play in the cup, and that's how we could metal out our aggressions. I mean,
it's a nice thought.
It's a child's dream. So
yeah, you wish that the Olympics and any other global
you wish that they would take the place
would serve that purpose. Yeah. Airing of grievances, but no, that's not how it works, unfortunately. No, there's what else is there to add?
No, that's sure.
I would like for corruption to be held accountable. I would like for countries committing human rights atrocities to fix their ways and compensate those injured, but that's really not. That's not really something
there might be an angle here. I mean, I don't want to belabor the point, but like you said, you've got me thinking. I'm like, is this something that people in the United States should be asking our congressmen to look into? I mean, is there something that America could do based on the fact that we sent our nationals to play in this tournament? There might be. You never know. There could be some legal angle to say, hey, look, we these players had to go here. We didn't want them. We don't want them to go here. And I don't know. There could be something. So who knows? Maybe someone might take it up. Maybe someone might take this up and say, we countries don't like what you FIFA are doing. I really got the other thing that really got me irate is because Harry Kane was very big on the fact that he was going to wear his it was like a One Love armband to protest. Basically,
I heard that's about as much as I heard about it. What happened?
Qatar, FIFA, it's not Qatar. FIFA basically banned it, and we're like, if you wear it, it's like heavy sanctions against you. I don't know if they said against the team or what have you, but it was enough that he basically did not wear the armband, whatever the sanctions were going to be. There have been heavy sanctions, or at least threats of sanctions against various forms of player protesting during this World Cup. So by FIFA, so it's like not only
maybe the world will protest. Maybe enough is enough. I wonder what the revenue will be this time around.
How crazy is it that it's not even Qatar doing it? It's FIFA. FIFA saying, "Oh yeah, we don't stand with what's happened here. We tried to reform and force Qatar to reform, but if you protest what's happened here, we're going to come after you. We're not going to go after Qatar because we chose them to host this World Cup, and they're our money makers. But you, as a player, tried to be an individual, tried to say, this is how I believe." That you can't believe anything on our pitch. You can't this blood-soaked pitch here. Keep your convictions off of it. This is our moneymaker, and that's where I'll leave it.
Oh, I mean, that's it. There's nothing more to say. There's nothing more I can add. You heard it, folks. You can't have your head buried in the sand anymore.
Can't have your cake and eat it too.
I still want to know what we can do to hold people more accountable. It looks like pressuring Switzerland would be the route.
You heard it here.
So what do we do for Switzerland? U.S. do for Switzerland? We send them money? Probably not, right?
I'm sure there's a lot of things. I'm sure we could find something.
I'm actually curious. The U.S. does not provide development assistance to Switzerland in any way.
I wouldn't expect we would. that Switzerland is known for being a very wealthy country. I would be very shocked if we did anything with.
Although we have trade relationships.
Naturally, I would assume this. So yeah, I would assume that there's trade relationship. I would assume that I'm sure that we do something in their interest and they do something in ours. So, but what it is, I do not know. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's stuff here, stuff that's a little over my head to be looking at it at a glance.
Okay.
Trying to make sense of it. Interesting. I'm sure there are levers to pull. And hopefully smarter people than me can figure it out.
What do you got?
All right. Well, kind of keeping with this, I have one for you, my worldly political philosopher. Earlier this month, the World Congress Against the Death Penalty gathered. It was the 8th gathering of this group of 1,000 activists and public figures from 90 countries. At the conference, Germany's prime minister singled out Iran and called on it to abolish the death penalty that's being used to silence opposition and criticized China for executions. The goal of the conference is to outlaw the death penalty worldwide, still used in 55 countries. Guess who's one of them? And now that's kind of all that I want to go into in that.
Yeah.
Because now kind of like is tied into sort of what we were saying here. Is that the right way to go about abolishing the death penalty?
I don't believe so.
Even on a global scale, but even within countries, like you have this global org coming down. Is it just one of many prongs that you kind of use to add pressure? Is it just grandstanding?
Well, who does the global org work for? Are they part of the United Nations at all, or are they just independent?
No, I think it's like a separate thing.
Okay. Well, in that case, I mean, here's what I would say why it's not the appropriate way to go about it. Going after the worst offenders, I don't know. I wish I had a good analogy for that. I just don't understand why you would start at the hardest point when there was low hanging fruit, much easier opposition to try to bully into abolishing something. I'm just saying, again, I'm not advocating that they should come in and tell the US what to do. I'm just saying that if you have nations that are we have democratic nations, I'm using air quotes, people. If you have democratic nations that are still putting people to death, I feel like you should start there, because first of all, the marketing always in these more autocratic states is that, why are you coming after us? You guys do it too. Or, even though we're trying to make that distinction, you're trying to say, well, you're putting your political opponents to death. We're putting people that may or may not have been accused appropriately to death. It's slightly different. These people have no power. Your people had power. So I don't know who's worse there, but without being so cynical, I think that's where you would start. You would say, all right, if the West doesn't abolish the death penalty, I don't understand why you expect the East to do so.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised why, let's be honest, why wasn't the US called out?
Yeah, there you go.
Is it because, I mean, that's an
well,
interesting
we know why
one.
That,
well, no,
we know why that is.
Let's pretend like we don't know why.
Let's
pretend like we don't have with it, we don't have the influence that we have.
Right. Let's pretend we don't have armies in like all corners of the world.
Yeah. It's interesting because you're like, yes, it'd be easier to start with seemingly democratic countries that just need kind of to be pushed over the fence rather than having to build the fence, hoist someone up and throw them over it in the first place.
I mean, you basically dig the trench. I mean, it's not even building a fence at that point. You're surveying the land. Right? Why don't you just exactly? Why don't you just push someone over the fence as opposed to start surveying land in order to dig a trench in order to start building your fence?
Exactly. But then I guess the other flip side of that would be the degree of violation. You have these other countries that might not compare, or the reasons why people are being executed maybe are being looked at as different. Whereas, I think Iran was executing people that were protesting. Yeah. China is doing it for whatever reason. I just cited executions, but we execute people, so I don't really know how to look at that. But is it that okay, yes, the U.S. executes people, but they do it less, and they do it for I don't even want to say
good reasons,
because it's not, because I don't agree with the death penalty, but. Is it being, what I'm getting at? Like, is it looked at as it's not the same? The reasons behind it are just not.
I mean, if you're trying to save the lives of innocent people, maybe that's why you would go about it in that way. Is the expediency to say, all right, look, we have X number of innocent people that are about to be put to death. We're trying to stop that. We're trying to put a stay on it. So we're going to go after the worst offenders first because we want to free these people before they're eventually off. It's one philosophy around it. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I just think that it's short-sighted because you're not going to do it. So that's
another thing, right?
You're not going to make it. You're not going to save these people.
You have this org that I've never heard of until I came across this article, the World Congress Against the Death Penalty, calling out Iran, to say, hey, stop doing this. What you're doing is heinous, as if they would listen.
Exactly.
Like, that's why I said, like, is this just grandstanding? Because what are you doing with that?
I mean, look, people would say you're bringing attention to an issue that needs attention brought to it. I mean, the thing is, I'm not going to argue that because on paper, that's exactly what you're doing. It's fine. We're talking about it. We're saying, hey, look, Iran is, they're executing their political dissidents. It's abhorrent. It's a terrible thing to do. But are you going to America to say that we should put more sanctions on Iran? How many sanctions do we already have on those people?
But so even if you were to say, okay, yeah, we called out Iran, but we're also doing other things, right? We can chew gum and walk at the same time, right? And we're doing things simultaneously, and that we call them out, but we're doing other things to get them done in other countries as well. But then to your point, well, what about the U.S.? Did the U.S. come up in any of this?
It might have. I mean, that's a question I'd have for you. I think I have heard of this Congress, esoterically in like the past. Maybe I can't remember, and I do believe that they have, tried to hold the U.S. accountable, or at least have mentioned the U.S. In some capacity. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt there because I don't understand how you could be a World Congress against the death penalty and not mention some of the countries that are in the global north that still upkeep that that basically medieval process of carrying out justice, which is how we both agree on that. What do I say beyond that? I don't know. It's like we think that. I mean, I would not be going after. It's probably more sensational. More people are going to pay attention because Iran, China, it's bandwagoning. And so in some respects, that's how I feel about it. It's like you're just jumping on this bandwagon of, all right, it's cool to call them out for their atrocities. It's like, all right, everyone and their mother does that. There's a million different things you come down on these countries for, and Iran is heavily sanctioned already. It's like, you're beating not a dead horse, but you're definitely, you're kicking the country when it's down, which is fine. But it's not changing anything. So
yeah,
maybe I'm just saying, if I were in charge, I'd want to at least try to get some of the heavy hitters to first abandon the death penalty, so that way you could go to these other countries and say, you're out of options. You're the only ones doing it now. The U.S. isn't doing it. England's not doing it. France isn't doing it. You're way out of left field now. You are the only people in the world executing people, that only people of power, of note, nuclear powers. How about that? You're the only nuclear power that is still putting people to death. Now we really have the weight of the world on you because there's no one else doing it. That's the scenario I would prefer. But clearly,
do they pull out the industrial age argument where, yeah, you don't have to pollute as heavy now because you did it all to get where you are today.
Except people keep growing. I mean, it's like you'll always have people, you always have more criminals. So that's just part of civilization. So I think that's where that argument doesn't hold weight. It's not like we're benefiting from a just society because we've killed.
We need these criminals,
all our undesirables.
We need criminals out of circulation so we can get our stuff together.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's an interesting way to go about it. But we don't have a history of offing. A couple of presidents assassinated, sure, but that was not by the government. Government didn't do that. So,
yeah. So I tried to quickly look it up while you were talking. I have not found any proclamations or any statements against the U.S. coming out of this group, but it could have happened. It could have definitely happened. Maybe it just wasn't written about.
I feel like if we can't find anything, that's even more of that's more of a black mark against this organization. If you're not going to go after everybody equally, then are you really against the death penalty at that point, or are you just against the death penalty in nations that subsist in the global South?
Yeah, it's a good question. Maybe if something comes up, we'll come back and retract.
Yeah.
Folks listening, watching, let us know in the comments section if you know anything more than we do, but haven't found anything. All right. I got another quick one.
Yeah, sure.
If you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I came across this story April 2019, and it got buried because COVID happened. So
what did it get buried? Yeah.
But I don't think it's stale. So let's do it. At that time, we discovered a new species of ancient human in the Philippines, Homo luzonensis. Luzonensis.
Cool. That's really cool.
Luzonensis.
Mm-hmm.
First time I'm saying it out loud. There are 13 bones of at least 3 different people found on this island of Luzon, hence the name, and date to about 67,000 years ago. This is the latest branch of the human tree and is more proof that our ancestors walked among other human species, which is just that thought alone never gets old in my mind.
I love that idea. I wish someone would write a really cool book and or make a movie. That's not the Flintstones.
Yeah. No, the whole idea that, yeah, like you have lions and tigers and just all these different cats. Like you would
same
have
thing for people.
Yeah, you would just have people of all different shapes and sizes, cool. Just like all humans. Like that whole thing is, God, I don't know. What a time to be alive.
Having sex, clubbing each other to death. I'm just saying, it's like Game of Thrones, but in the Paleolithic period. I mean, it could be really sensational. I wish a paleontologist or somebody, I don't know what you call someone who specifically just studies ancient humans, but I feel like there's a market here. I'm dying for it. I'm asking you, Twitter, YouTube, commenters, somebody out there write this novel because I will read it. I will think this is such just an awesome novel to write to read if you could get this right. Because I think there's enough dynasty stuff that you could kind of like make up a little bit with the tribalness and just like I just feel like there's so much there. There's just so much with all these different humans walking around. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. So I'm with you. I
think if they stay true to what they look like, it's going to throw people off. I'd be curious to know how realistic.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. I'd be curious to see.
They're upright at this point, right? They're upright.
Bipedal. They're bipedal.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not going to be like, it's not like they have 6 legs or something. It's like they're like, ants or
no, but
spiders.
you have to really get good designers on this. I don't want like Geico, like the Geico caveman.
Yeah, no, I don't want the
around.
Geico caveman. I don't want the Geico caveman. You're absolutely right. That's my point. I think that not only could you, I don't think it has to be boring. I don't think it has to be, just a bunch of different, hominids sitting around.
I don't want to be distracted. That's what I mean. I don't want to be distracted by the hair and makeup.
Yeah.
I
does anyone know if could we speak? Was there language at this point?
I don't know. I don't think any soft tissue. Well, I don't know from that long ago. I don't know.
That'll be interesting.
I'm sure that they had language, probably not being able to pronounce all the syllables and tones that we do. They might have had deeper voices, higher voices, or limited sounds and gestures and limited vocabulary. Think of what we have now. I mean, cultures aren't born with that. That's accumulation.
Yeah.
If you ever study the history of language and how they come together to form new languages, and even now we borrow words from other countries because we don't have a word to describe it. Right. So there's, if you just bring it all the way back to the beginning, you can just imagine how limited it would have been, especially because everyone's isolated. These families. That's what they were. Still
communicated, right? Because I mean, there are, there's enough to say that the Neanderthal and modern, ancient human, that they intermarried, or
Homo sapien, Homo sapien and Neanderthals.
Well, right, because we have the DNA. I mean, what are you talking about? Because people have Neanderthal DNA. Yeah. So we know that.
Who knows what else we have?
Well, yeah, exactly. And so there was enough to, it wasn't just grunts and whistles. I mean, there was enough to probably.
No, I think that they
communication. So
who's to say what it was? I'm sure they had more than just pointing and grunting. I don't think it was that. I don't think. I'm just
saying. I feel like there's a good novel here. Like we really could do something that would be HBO like, where people are going to just tune in just to see what goes on. And plus, what do you still have? You still have what do you have? So what do you call it? Mammoths? My head is like
mastodons.
Yeah, they're still roaming the earth, so there's still some cool massive creatures that that you could throw around just to spice things up. A couple of ancient humans go to war, and they're out there with primitive bows and their arrows and what's the stick that David? I mean, what is the you put it in cloth and you throw it around with the stone inside. What do you call that? Slingshot? No,
sling.
Sling. There you go. Everyone's, because that was like the first projectile. So people probably got slings, maybe. And then
probably like arrows, some type of arrow.
Sure, I'm just saying some sort of arrow, spear, arrowhead. You never know. And then
hardened stick. Fire.
They're going at it over some territorial dispute, and then you saber-tooth tiger, maybe. It's like, I'm just saying, it's writing itself, people. This isn't hard. This isn't rocket science. I'm getting excited.
They go on days-long hunts. Yeah, the whole thing.
The whole
following the herds.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. I love it. I think it's so missed. And I don't want some Morgan Freeman National Geographic, Disney-fied, that you've got the somber music. You're just like following a family, and it's like, this is what it would have been like if. What's the latest one they just found? How they did it for like Lucy. It's like, and then Lucy fell from the tree, and is this the end? I mean, I want something more interesting. That's all I'm saying. I think that we can.
You want to see dynamic relationships.
I do.
You want to feel the highs and lows of daily life.
I want to feel the fear. I want to feel the fear of the dark and the fear of other. I mean, do you know how
you want to watch someone whittle for 3 hours straight, only at the very end to break the whole thing in half and have to start over?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah,
part of it.
You want to feel the stress.
All I'm saying is that there has to be more. There has to be more than just an instinctual abhorrence of the other, which, I feel like when you think about primates, for instance, if they're encroaching on one's territory, I don't know if there's necessarily this sense of you're a primate, I'm a primate. This is really wild that we're both primates. It's more of a sense of like you're incredibly different. You're a different species. That I don't want to use their species, but how they're feeling, it's just like, well, you're just the other. You're different. I want to believe that humans, in just the way that we, our sense of wonder and the way that we evolved in this world, I want to believe that it wasn't this sense of, oh, they're no different than like running across a lion or running across something else, like where it was like, this is crazy. These people are people. They're they just look very different from us, but they're people. They're communicating in a similar fashion to the way we're communicating. I just think that there's so much to that.
It's interesting you've gone here.
Okay, right. Well, okay, why?
I'm gonna because I'm gonna kind of like look at exactly what you're saying, but through a slightly different angle, through a different lens.
Sure, do it.
All right. First, before we get to that bit, I do want to call out something that I thought was interesting here. Like I said, this was on an island. Now, over time, right, climate change, rising, falling sea levels, what are islands today may have been mainland back 67,000 years ago. But some of them are separated by such deep trenches and crossings that they are what an island is today was an island before.
Okay.
And so this particular island was an island back then, according to the experts. So now you have people who either by accident or for exploratory reasons crossed this channel 67,000 years ago, seafaring, and went on this island and populated it and lived there. That is extraordinary. That is the second species that has been found this far back that's on an island, at least two that I know of. So the other one I think was found like 2014 or something. So it's just really, really interesting to think that 67,000 years ago, you think of the Vikings and the Polynesians, and we're like,
right.
For good reason, like we're wowed by them navigating across the Pacific and the Atlantic and island hopping and making their way to different continents. Like that's phenomenal. But then 67,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, that's, even if it is from mainland next island over, that's incredible.
Well, I feel like you're burying the lead. What's the hypothesis on how they swam, like how they got across?
They don't know. They have no idea. Like I said, they don't know if it was by accident or if they intended to do it. Accident, storm happened.
What's accident? What
you're on the beach, you get washed away by a tsunami, and you end up on an island. I don't know.
How far is this island, though? How
it's
likely
the next
is
island.
That?
It's like an island off of the mainland.
Yeah, but how likely is it to get washed off of the shore and then you get washed out to sea? And then, first of all, you need multiple people.
Who am I to say?
A whole.
I guess without uncovering a canoe or a boat or something, like you can't say for sure.
I'd be interested to know if these people have anything special about their man, I'm just blanking. There are these people who are expert divers. There's something scientifically like there's some, I don't want to say it's like an air pouch. It's not really, again, I'm gonna have to retract or look it up. But basically there's something about the way they've evolved, and they're still humans, that allows them to dive and stay deeper underwater than your average human. There's something
they have like more lung capacity or something.
It's not even lung. Yeah, it's not even lung capacity. I feel like it's like a spleen. Like I feel like it has something to do with the spleen. But my point is, I'm wondering if it's going to be something similar to that, where
Kevin Costner from Waterworld.
So just like Kevin Costner, exactly. Yeah, something about these people either made them extraordinary swimmers, and that's why they were able to traverse this. Or maybe they happen to just evolve on that island. Maybe that's where they came out of water, and they were just wholly evolved into their type of person on the island, and they never touched mainland. They were never on a part of a mainland. That could also be. I feel like that's more likely.
Personally. Well, they had to come from somewhere. They didn't just.
Well, I just feel like there might have been enough. I don't know. There could have been enough evolution on that island.
But they would have to come from somewhere. And this is actually something that the experts don't know as well. Like, how do they get on the island? But then even how do they get in this area? And the big debate now for people in this field is this a new species that emerged much, much earlier from Africa? Or are they descendants of Homo erectus, who was in the area at the time?
Okay.
So, I mean, one way or another, it looks like they came out of Africa, but then it's okay. Was it an earlier than known migration?
Yeah.
Or is it coming from, are they descendants of?
I mean, do we know if there could have possibly been an ice bridge at some point? That could have been done too. That could happen too. I mean, they don't know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm throwing that out.
Who's to say that there wasn't
the population? You don't know.
That for a short period of time things didn't freeze over and people crossed. I don't
exactly.
know.
I'm saying it could have been something.
Not
like
the whole
too.
world was covered in ice at this time. That you could go south far enough where there was liquid water.
Right.
There were just ice sheets that came down from the north.
Could have been something like that.
So
that allowed it, because that would make. I'm just saying it. I don't want people to go off and start speculating that these guys had boats. All right. It's just not like.
Well, that's why they're not saying that. You don't know. You just don't know exactly how they got there, and there's probably much more to learn. But so this brings me to my question, going back to where your mind was going. What do you think that if today a new species emerged, just like this,
you asked me this already,
from the forest, the jungle, they're bipedal, they're primates, they are related to us. So I've asked you maybe about other animals that can talk. But these are us. They are related to us. You would look at them just like you were saying, and you're like, you're human.
Okay.
They have language, primitive language, but they have it. They can problem solve. They gesture. They have facial expressions. They have auditory expressions, just like us. What do we do with them? Do you?
What's their territory worth?
They come out. What
resources? Do they have any resources in their land that they come from?
They come out of anywhere.
Stone?
So they can come out of the tundra, they can come out of the desert, the forest, the jungle.
It depends on the resources.
Anywhere. No, but do you? All right. So are you saying that you fence them off and you're like, you stay here, or do you put them in cages and camps, or do you integrate them into schools? Do you hire them? Do you train them? Do you they're capable? It's not a lesser animal, is what I'm getting at.
I don't understand. Are you just saying that we discover them and they're primitive, and it's like, well, what do we do with them? Well, probably. I mean, you leave them right where they are, because why would we do anything else? It's where they live. It's their home. But then, what does the global community do? It depends on the resources that are available on their island. Whether they get left alone or they get exploited really has to do with the value of their home.
Well, it's curious, because what I was kind of getting at. So yes, if you were to have a tribe, right? We have this today in the world, that have been around for millennia.
Yeah.
And yes, we leave them alone, I guess, to some degree, right? We do that.
Is worthless. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We do that, or we relocate them or whatever, but we quote unquote leave them alone. But what I'm getting at here is that this is not a culture, a tribe, or anything that has been around for millennia. It is new. It is just evolved, and it just came on the scene. But we're so populated and we're so developed that they can't go unnoticed. So you have, whatever came before us gave birth, and now it's us. I know that we're missing several links in between what we are and what our most common ancestor is. But for the exercise here, some animal, some relative of us gives birth, and they give birth to what we would consider to be a human. How would we treat them? That's kind of really what I'm getting at. Like, what would we do? That's a thought that popped into my head, because when I'm thinking about us walking around with other humans, other comparable humans, not us and like a silverback gorilla, but other comparable primates, what do we do with that? What happens if there was a new member, a newcomer to the scene?
Are they attractive?
I knew, it's so funny. I typed up a sentence, and the sentence was, do we let them breed naturally? And I'm like, I'm not even going to bring this up because Antoine is going to jump all over this, and you did it anyway. You did it anyway.
I'm just asking a question. It's a simple question.
I don't know. Sure. In a Star Trek alien sort of way.
Okay.
where they have.
I'm just saying, what is the in the Star Wars universe, the Keely, it's basically it's the race that's usually you see they're usually feminine, and they've got like the long tentacles on the back, you know what I'm talking about? They're usually they're usually enslaved in some capacity, usually throughout the Star Wars universe. I'm going to say that's something similar to that without saying
that's terrible.
Well,
that's what we're going to do. That's what
I'm not saying we're going to do it. I'm just trying to say it depends on what part of the world they're in. It depends on what kind of authoritarian powers are closest, by. And again, it depends.
That's too big. That is too big of a new discovery for some.
There's no way. If you're trying to get me to say that the world's going to come together in some sort of United Nations fashion and create some sort of safe haven.
No, I'm asking. If you're going to tell me that a new human comes onto the scene, and then some foreign power just traffics them.
Oh,
and
yeah.
No one else gets that.
Absolutely.
But so not all of. So I'm sure that something nefarious would happen. Nefarious things happen all the time. But let's like try and keep it on the whole. And that
why do you think that? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think? Do you think the
no, I'm trying to force
is going to go to war to save?
No, I'm trying to force you to think about what you would do. Would you treat them like zoo animals, or would you try and integrate them?
If I were in charge of the world, I would leave them alone and just.
There is no leaving them alone.
No, I'm saying you could figure out. You could either say that. What do you want to say? You were going to do experiments to figure out how they work and
no. So if you're, let's say it came out of Africa, right? Because that's if we were going to follow
they came out of Africa.
That's probably where they come out of, unless they're no, because you can have those animals
I don't know
anywhere around the world.
What are you trying to say?
So it doesn't matter. They were born somewhere,
okay,
and then they take 50 steps from their place of birth, and they are in a developed nation. There is no go back where you came from and just be happy. There is none of that.
Of course not. They'll be probably like it's like.
So that's what I'm saying. Is you can't just leave them alone. They're not going to wander off into traffic.
I'm saying whoever discovers them, they're going to become sort of they're going to enter basically a kafala system of some sort. I mean, they're probably going to end up being the lowest rung for some sort of labor. Yeah, most likely.
You think that's what would happen?
Absolutely.
Oh man, I don't know.
I don't know why you think that anything else would happen. If you're primitive and it depends on whose doorstep. Look here. How about this? If you want to save them, somehow they've made it to the Mexican border.
No, it's just such a conundrum. It's not saving them. You have another group of humans with no nation, no land, no nothing. They don't have family. They don't have family. They don't have anything else. Its parents would be a different thing. There is nothing for them in that sense.
The only way to save them is to put them in a zoo. Otherwise, they're just going to end up.
But they are capable of learning everything that your kid could learn.
Oh yeah, that doesn't stop it from happening anywhere in the world. Every human is capable of learning everything. I don't know what that doesn't save anybody.
But they have to be someone's burden, right? So then you would just say it's luck of the draw. Whatever country that you happen to spring up in, it's on them to take care of the new species, the likes of which humans have not seen for the last 100,000 years.
Do you honestly think that if they wound up on our doorstep, let's say we're gonna bring this home. They wound up on our doorstep. They're a novelty for a bit, and then at some point, our society. Someone's going to be like, "All right, well, I mean, we're going to put them up here. Give them. I don't know. Maybe give them a plot of land. I don't know. And then at some point, they're going to just end up picking oranges for like $3 an hour. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't understand where that's going to happen. And there'll be. People might go down and talk to them for every now and then, but until they rise, don't.
You don't think it would be some type of program that would say we're going to put you through our school systems. You'll be given an equitable opportunity, so you will enhance your opportunity to go through.
I mean, this sounds like what Australia tried to do with the indigenous. I mean,
you can't compare it to that though, because those
terrible.
Stayed there. No, but those folks had a culture. They had something.
Well, so I think that's the break here. People, you say these people will have a culture as well, right? They're
well, I guess I'm kind of shortchanging it because I'm skipping out all of the evolutionary steps that you would need to just spring up naturally, right? Like so I'm kind of like not. I'm kind of breaking the reality of what's possible by saying going from Lucy to us,
right?
Instead of Lucy and the 5 other things that happened then us,
right?
Saying that whatever is out there now that gives birth to some mutated thing that is a human. So a primate gives birth to a human without going through the millions of years.
I mean, it would be studied if first of all, if a primate,
but just forcing you to answer
definitely
how we would treat some other humanoid that was fully capable of doing everything we do. They just didn't have anything.
I'm open to asking this question to a guest. I would love to hear someone else's opinion on this because I want to be wrong. I'm just having trouble figuring out where a situation where the novelty doesn't wear off and they end up. Think about it. What society is just going to say, all right, you guys are new. Come and join our society, vote in our elections, but you don't have to work. And so we're going to give you a stipend.
Well, they have to work.
You see, even you're saying it. My point is the fact that you
everyone has to work.
Oh yeah, exactly. Everyone has to work. And guess what? Guess who's on the lowest rung of that? You know, like, like you're not just going to go in and give them judgeships. What are you going to say? Oh, you all go to law school? Now these new humans are new lawyers.
If they go through the education system and they can do that,
is these people like what are you going to do? How are you going to promote that? We never promoted amongst our own people.
You're not
college.
You're not putting incompetent people in positions they can't do. The idea is that they have the capacity to do it.
Sure, and through our merit.
Like I guess if you were to take a
college.
I guess my question would be, if you were to take a Homo sapien from 50,000 years ago, and you drop them into a private K through 12, a prep school, and then Harvard, you know, like.
Yeah, they would be
able to do that, right?
Sure, they would just do that. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
But that's what I'm saying. That's a free ride because they need to have wealth. They need to have money. They need to have the things that allow you to do something like that. Like I said, if we're going to bring them into our society and give them a free ride and say, here's free access to everything. You have no debts.
That's an equitable start, right? I mean, that's what that is.
That's an equitable start. Yeah. Again, that's asking a lot. I would be amazed if that is something that would be afforded to them. In America, possibly, if someone were to bring it up and say, hey, I mean, look, man, it's so wild that we're contemplating this because even the idea, I just know the idea of someone saying, hey, we're gonna put these guys up on your dime, on your I just can't. I could see the ads now. I can completely see the ads. And the thing is, you're gonna be like, wow, that person's a monster. How could they come in and say how you know, because they're basically gonna attack it to say these freeloading people from nowhere. We don't even know where they came from. They're using our tax dollars. They're using our dime. This administration put them up. They took exactly. This administration is propping them up, and they're freeloaders. And now what? They're going to be lawyers. Now they're going to be doctors, while your kids are working in coal mines and plumbers. And it's like, where's your hand now? Where's your? It's like it's a mess. It's a mess. That's the thing. I can't believe you foresee a future where that would be allowed, because I guarantee you right now, no one's going to come at it from this altruistic, like, I can't believe these are new human beings.
Well, it's different because any argument that's made for an equitable start today is usually countered by those that would counter it because they don't want to admit any guilt.
Correct.
But there would be no guilt here for anyone. Which is
why I'm like, it's even worse.
Or you think it's worse?
A little bit.
So that because is that like a motivator for some to I mean, something right, and where there's this, hey, you know, nature is nature, and you're bad for being late.
I'm just saying, Catholicism got as far as it has, running on a world of guilt. So I mean, there's got to be something to guilt. If there's no guilt, no one feels any allegiance to these people whatsoever, and they're just like, why are you why would you feel inclined to hand them the world just out of the sheer kindness of your heart? I just don't see it.
All right,
that's my bottom line on it. But I would love to be proved wrong. I would love for someone to come in with a really cool idea to say, you know what's going to happen. First of all, I would love someone just to say, you know what, maybe there is a UN charter on this. Just like, aren't there like official things if an alien were to land? Aren't there like official rules to that?
I've heard that. I don't think I've ever heard an official confirm it, but I've heard it that we have
like there's like some protocol for it, and I feel like it would be. I feel like that would probably get actioned if this were truly a new species. They would probably use the same thing as the alien protocols, because I think that there's something that doesn't allow us to immediately enslave these aliens, right? Even though that's what naturally would happen. So I believe there's probably something that prevents that.
Isn't it weird that we've had multiple types of humans in our past, and they didn't all pop up at the same time, but we haven't had any lately? Is that not weird? I always wanted to ask a scientist that.
I would love to hear the answer to that.
Like, why doesn't that still happen?
Yeah,
why don't they pop up every 10,000 years?
That's a cool question. That's a really cool question. Yeah, I would love to. Or maybe they have,
and we just kill them off. The government.
It would be interesting.
That's the answer to this question. Then what happens? The government kills them off before they have to deal with it.
One way or another.
Jeez.
Probably disease, first of all. I mean, if you were probably to ask a scientist, they would say, oh, I don't even know why you guys have argued about this for the past half hour, because your disease would probably just die of disease within a few weeks of meeting you.
That's fair. They probably would. All right.
Well, Jay, where can they find us? Where can they find us?
Everyone, you can find us at Retraction Media on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share your favorite episode, and comment. We actually have clips up now, so 10 minutes or less segments, 10 minutes or less segments from our full episodes to make it easy to view on the go. You can follow us on Twitter, again, at Retraction Media. We're pretty active on there, so let us know your thoughts. And subscribe to listen to this podcast on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Audible, and more.
With that, you're a horrible person if you're not boycotting the World Cup. Retraction out.